Good evening and welcome to the Town of Rockland Select Board meeting for Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Lieutenant McDonald, can you start us off?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPS Rockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. First on the agenda, I'd just like to regret to announce the passing of Rockland firefighter Lieutenant David Patry, retired firefighter. Lieutenant Patry was appointed to the Rockland Fire Department on March 31st, 1963 as a permanent intermittent firefighter. On June 19th, 1967, David was promoted to the position of fire lieutenant. He served the town of Rockland for 31 years, retiring on April 16, 1994. Lieutenant Patry was 87 years old at the time of death on Monday, January 19, 2026. So if you could, just offer a moment of silence for Lieutenant Patry. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, minutes from 1/20/26. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Yep.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, Council on Aging appointment, Maureen Sutherland. Doug?
Yeah, so you have in your packet Ms. Sullivan's form that she filled out and recommendation from the Council on Aging Director. Unfortunately, Ms. Sutherland is not able to attend tonight. Some of you may know her, so you may still want to go ahead and make the appointment or not. That's up to you, but she wanted to be here, but she's unable tonight. And we could postpone if you want, your call.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable appointing her or
Yeah.
entertaining the motion. I've known Maureen for a while. I believe she also works the elections and stuff like that, so
Yep. She's very active.
extremely active down
At
there.
the center, so I second that motion.
No, you could make the motion.
Or make
I
the
said I would.
motion.
All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Next on the agenda, one-day liquor license request, 4th floor artist, 83 East Water Street, 2/13/26 from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Anybody here from 4th floor artists?
I thought somebody was going to be here. The paperwork is in order. You know, we do quite a few of these for the 4th floor artists, so I'm comfortable recommending it without someone there. And you can see in the packet the certificate of liability insurance, tips completion, et cetera.
Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable entertaining motion on this one as well. As Doug said, we do a lot of events. They do a lot of events there, so.
Yeah, motion.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Yep.
That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, Slum and Blight designation, inventory report, overview, and vote. Doug. Or
Yeah.
Courtney.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll turn this over to Courtney. Thanks.
Just going to take one quick minute to introduce this. I know we briefly talked about this at the last select board meeting. As we had mentioned, Community Opportunities Group manages our CDBG program here in Rockland. We put out a contract request for a consulting firm to come in and update our Slum and Blight inventory. They're here tonight, R&D consultants will be joining us to present their findings from that, and then I'll invite Wayne and Christine and Karen up to talk a little bit more about the next steps and what we'll be asking for you all to vote on tonight. So with that, I'm just going to turn the floor over to R&D. Karen, Andrew, and Danny, come on up, introduce yourselves, and we'll get your presentation up on there. And then, if you could just speak into the microphone, not for these guys, but mostly for the folks at home.
Okay.
And then use the arrow keys if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, you guys. Well, thank you all for having us. I'm Andrew with R&D Consultants. Just a quick overview. R&D is just a real estate planning and construction management firm, Massachusetts-based firm. And Danny and the team here, we worked with Courtney and Allison and the COG team to conduct the slums and blight inventory. And that's what we're going to run through, kind of a high-level summary of those items with you right now.
Perfect. Move along here.
So we can go one more. Okay, so really the purpose of this project was to complete a evaluation of all the physical components of the properties and the infrastructure along the Union Street corridor, and to document that information with photo surveys and field assessments, and summarize all that information in a final report. Excuse me. So that was kind of the main purpose. You can go to the next slide. So the project steps that we took were really kind of a three-tiered system. We did a desktop evaluation before going out into the field and did some preliminary background research to make sure that we had a general understanding of what was along the Union Street corridor. The second step was actually doing a physical inspection and conducting those field survey assessments, and then taking those photo surveys, the property rating sheets, all that information and documentation, and putting maps together that were color-coded that actually scored the ratings of all the properties and buildings along Union Street, including the infrastructure as well. And some of those infrastructure items, included, the signage, the sidewalks, the ADA accessibility of these items, all those different things like that. And just to give you like a little bit more detail in the insight of our process, we had two project engineers that would walk the corridor. And we'll show you a map here in a couple of slides, but the corridor was from North Ave all the way down to East-West Water Street. That was kind of the main portion of the corridor. There's about 48 parcels that were in the corridor there. So we had two engineers that would actually walk it, take photos, and document the process on an iPad with all of our notes and everything. And then a third project engineer on R&D's team would actually review these items just for quality control to make sure that there wasn't anything that we were missing in the reporting process. So we're going to show you a quick map to show you what that looked like, and then Danny's going to share some information about the findings.
Yep. So here you see the conditions overview map. This is our project study area. It is the Union Street corridor, just outside here. Like Andrew said, it's from North Ave to East-West Water Street. The R&D team was, they inspected 48 different properties and all the abutting roadways and infrastructure, including the side streets along the property. So as you see here, there's 4 different condition designations, from poor to excellent, poor, fair, good, excellent. And I'll go to the next slide to go over the findings. So we split our study up into 2 separate forms. There's one for property, one for infrastructure. We looked at 48 different properties and over 300,000 square feet of roadway. For the properties, we looked at multiple different conditions, including the exterior walls, the roofing, the windows and doors, any lots that go with it, signage, and ADA accessibility. The ADA accessibility also carries over into the infrastructure, which we also looked at the asphalt on the roadways, the curbing, the concrete sidewalk, any lighting. And we also looked at any other mechanical or electrical infrastructure along the roadway as well. We weren't able to visually inspect the utilities, but with correspondence between Waterworks and the town, we were able to find out that most of the water mains and sewer lines are early 1900s and probably past their useful life. Some of the primary issues we identified during our inspections were the cracking and patchwork on the road surfaces. Again, this was mostly on the side streets here. A lot of the roadway on Union Street itself was good, but due to it being resurfaced in 2020. Also, for the properties, a lot of the commercial properties, it seemed that it had deferred maintenance. So like you would see a lot of the vinyl panels and the roofing kind of rotting away and or peeling off the building. There were some cracks in the glass on a lot of these commercial buildings, and we would also see some cracking in the foundation, but overall, we looked at 48 properties, 26 of them were in good condition, but we did see 15 fair, 7 poor, which was above that 25% threshold of slum and blight designation. Same with the infrastructure. It was mostly the side streets that took up that, as you see here, almost 50% fair or poor. So that, again, is above that 25% threshold. And that's what I got for our findings.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So why is this important? We kind of highlighted 4 major pillars to why we think, or why this project's, this documentation is important. There's probably several others that we can kind of go through, but to kind of just run through these quickly for you. The major thing is it's going to unlock funding eligibility. So when you all decide to take your vote and submit this, designation to EOHLC, you'll be able to unlock different funding opportunities that will enable, number 2, different infrastructure investments and creating incentives for property and landowners that want to, create better facades or maybe just improve some signage options. And those funding options become unlocked through this designation. And then I think number 4, it really looking at the bigger picture here, it really supports, future corridor planning. So, maybe identifying some catalytic sites or even establishing, capital planning that different departments and team members might use for future public works projects that come up for the town. And you can go to the next one. I think we have. So we'll highlight 2 quick next steps for the team here, and then Wayne's going to kind of give you a little bit more of a deep dive into these items. So we understand that, the next steps for y'all are to have a select board vote, and depending on that vote, you'll have the decision to submit this to EOHLC, the state, for the formal designation of the slums and blight inventory. So I'll stop there.
Wayne Darrow,
Welcome.
town's Community Opportunity Group, the town's CDBG consultant. So, as Andrew just said, there are 2 next steps both required in order for us to continue to move forward with this process. Just a reminder, we've been through this process before. We had a prior slum and blight inventory that had been approved by the state. We had used that designation to replace majority of the sidewalks along Union Street in the same stretch. We used it to run a sign and facade program. So it has unlocked funding in the past for the town. That's why we've gone back to it. When EOHLC approves a slum and blight inventory, it has a 10-year lifespan. So our prior one had expired. That's why we've gone back, hired R&D to come in and do this process for us again. But the next steps are, 1, there does need to be a vote by the board to adopt a designation that this stretch of Union Street is substandard in a manner that conforms with Mass General Law 121B. And what that means, as the R&D mentioned, is at least 25% of the buildings in the target area are fair or poor condition, and at least 25% of the infrastructure is also in fair or poor condition. If you're wondering why the target area ends where it does, that has to do with the requirement that a slum and blight area has to be a majority non-residential, and once you get past the 2 endpoints we have, it becomes almost exclusively residential property. So I just wanted to clarify that fact. But the first step would be for the board to adopt that finding according to MGL 121B. And once you do that, you can then make a motion to submit the inventory to EOHLC for its review and, I suspect, approval.
Okay. So, anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, I do.
From R&D?
Yeah, how long does it typically take for an EOHLC designation, blight designation?
I'll answer that.
Like, yeah, most things take a while.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
3 to 6 months would be a pretty good turnaround.
That's quick for the state.
They only have one person that does these reviews. They don't get a lot of them crossing their desk, but where they've got our prior inventory, I'm hoping that it makes it an easier review for them.
Okay, and would they unlock funds for sewer and water infrastructure? Potentially?
Not necessarily, because even though they may be beyond their current life or expected lifespan, blighting is a visual element. You can't see a failed water pipe, you can't see a clogged sewer pipe. So it's probably not going to make that type of work eligible in this area.
Okay, and were the foundations of the buildings, I heard something about that. Did you check
So-
the foundation?
You can do exterior improvements on the buildings if they are rated fair or poor.
Okay,
You know, you can't go in and do interior improvements. Again, because this is a visual item, they need to be seen from a public way
okay,
to be eligible for improvement.
all right. And is there any issue if it's a privately owned building?
No.
No? It
No,
doesn't-
and
I mean,
what we did in the past was we provided grants. It was a 75-25
Yeah,
matching grant program where the,
Okay.
we used 75% of the project cost was paid with CDBG funds, and the owners contributed the other 25%. And when we did the sign and facade program,
Yeah.
that was a 100% grant,
Right.
up to a certain amount. I think it was $2,500 at that time. That was, the sign and facade program, we had a lot of people asking for that money.
yeah, okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, so we have the, we have to do the certification of the blighted conditions, and then we would vote after that?
Then after that, you would vote to submit the inventory.
Okay.
Well, you know, vote on.
Vote on that.
The certification,
Yeah,
and then
and
vote
then
on the
vote on the
submission to EOHLC.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or concerns? Okay, Laura, you wanna read it?
Sure.
Might as well.
I hereby certify that an area of the Rockland Center Business District meets the Commonwealth's definition of a decadent and substandard area as given in MGL Chapter 121B. The limits of this area are defined by the land parcels fronting along Union Street, running from just north of the North Avenue/Union Street intersection to a few parcels south of East and West Water Street/Union Street intersection. These definitions are as follows. A decadent area is an area which is detrimental to the safety, health, morals, welfare, or sound growth of a community because of the existence of buildings which are out of repair, physically deteriorated, unfit for human habitation, or obsolete, or in need of major maintenance or repair, or because much of the real estate has been sold or taken for non-payment of taxes or upon foreclosure of mortgages, or because buildings have been torn down and not replaced, and under existing conditions, it is improbable that the buildings will be replaced, or because of a substandard change in business or economic conditions, or because of inadequate light, air, and open space, or because of excessive land coverage, or because diversity of ownership, irregular lot sized, or obsolete street patterns make it improbable that the area will be redeveloped by ordinary operations of private enterprise, or by reason of any combination of the foregoing conditions. Substandard area is any area wherein dwellings predominate, which by reason of dilapidation, overcrowding, faulty arrangement or design, lack of ventilation, light or sanitation facilities, or any combination of these factors are detrimental to the safety, health, or morals.
Okay, so that is the motion. Do I have a second on the certification of the blighted conditions?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Yep.
That is unanimous. Okay, and I'll now entertain a motion to approve the Slum and Blight plan
Motion.
For submission to EOHLC.
for submission to EOHS.
Yeah.
All right.
Motion.
Thank you, Wayne.
Yeah.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So we're running about 5 minutes behind, so I will entertain a motion to enter into the public hearing for the CDBG FY26 public hearing. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Selectperson O'Donnell?
Yes.
Selectperson Elwood?
Yep.
Vice Chair Childs?
Yes.
And myself. All right, we're now in public hearing. Wayne, welcome back. It's been a minute.
Yep.
Thank you. Tonight I'm here to speak with the board about submitting another community development block grant application under the federal fiscal year 2026 program. We've been doing grants regularly for quite some time now. All that time, we've been doing a lot of housing rehab work. It's really become a very necessary program in town. Our projects are getting bigger and more complicated, and it's something we'd like to continue on behalf of the town. So under the Community Development Block Grant, there's about $24 million available. The state has seen fit to make some changes to its program, but we're basically dealing with the same sets of requirements that we have throughout the last 10 or 15 years. It's a two-part scoring process. One, your application packet is scored on a 65-point scale. And then there's a low and moderate income score that's assigned to every community based on what percentage of its population meets the low and moderate income limits. So that's a 10-point scale. They've broken the entire state into 10% brackets. Those with the highest amount get 10 out of 10, and then they work down the ladder. So Rockland actually gets 9 out of 10 points on that scale, which makes you very, very competitive. You're ahead of a lot of communities right off the bat before they even start looking at our packet. There are quite a few uses for CDBG funds. It's a very flexible program. It can be used for housing rehab, as I mentioned. It can be used for commercial rehab, as we mentioned when we were discussing the Slum and Blight inventory. It can be used for infrastructure, handicap accessibility improvements, public social services. It can even be used for certain planning and design activities. But while an activity must be eligible, it also must meet a national objective. And there are 3 national objectives: benefit to low and moderate income individuals, aid in prevention and elimination of slums and blight, and meeting a critical community need. That third one is not something I've ever had an application go forward under. We're talking about, national disasters, that sort of situation. So the vast majority of CDBG funds, at least 70%, have to be used to benefit low and moderate income individuals. And that's what we're proposing to do with the 2026 grant. Now, in the past, single communities have been able to apply for $800,000, $850,000. This year, EOHLC has increased the maximum amount a single community can obtain to $950,000. So we're thinking we need to go for that full amount, or as close to it as we can. And the reason we're talking about moving forward with the housing rehab program is we currently have 24 applications on our waiting list. And I think if we do get another grant, even at the $950,000 level, we're probably only looking at being able to help about half of those applicants. Our project costs are around $60,000 a unit these days. I think there's going to be even more applications coming in, especially this time of year. You know, people are getting ice dams, they're getting roof leaks, it's a time of year when our phone rings quite a bit and a lot of people are looking for assistance. So, we've got a preliminary budget of $950,000 to do 10 to 12 units of rehab. And we will be going for the full $950,000. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Wayne?
No, that was very good.
Okay.
Okay, also, we need to talk about some of the other requirements of the program. That is, when we spend grant funds in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we have to do so in a way that is consistent with the state's sustainable development principles. That means concentrating development, advancing equity, protecting land, expanding housing opportunities. There's a list of 10 of them. A housing rehab plan meets the sustainable development principles because we're providing or expanding housing opportunities. We're also concentrating development because we're not building on new land. We're working on existing structures. We're not building a project on a vacant piece of land. And also, we hope it increases some job opportunities for local contractors. We try to, anytime we get a new grant, we try and do some more marketing. We're always looking for contractors who, specifically general contractors with construction supervisor licenses to work in our program. The other requirement we have is related to program income. The town earns program income. Back up a little bit. When we do a housing rehab program, there's no immediate cost to someone who receives assistance. The assistance is provided in the form of a deferred payment loan. So what that means is if we do $50,000 worth of work on your home, we're going to put a $50,000 lien against your property. That lien is a 15-year lien, and it declines over time, 1/15 per year. So if you stay in your home for the entire 15 years after the project is done, it becomes a grant to you. There's no repayment. If it's sometime during that 15-year period, you have to sell your property, then you pay back the appropriate portion of that assistance. It's great because it lets someone repair their home without having to take on any additional regular monthly debt, a home equity loan or something like that. It's one of the great aspects of the project. Any questions about that? Okay. I do need to talk about prior grants. Just we're required to have multiple public hearings throughout the life of a grant. So we currently have one open grant. It was the 22-23 grant. That was a year, because they doubled up on the year, we were able to actually obtain $1.2 million for that program. We're going to rehab 16 units. We've completed 11 to date. We have one under construction. We have two that will be going under construction soon. And we've got a final project that we still need to put out to bid, which obviously is tough this time of year. But, we're quite confident we'll have that program wrapped up by June. That's about it from me. I don't know if anyone in the audience has questions or...
Yeah, Lori, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Do you guys have a requirement to use union contractors?
No,
Okay.
I don't think we're allowed to do that
You're not? Okay.
legally.
All right.
Any questions from any members of the audience? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to dissolve the public hearing.
Motion to dissolve the public hearing.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, roll call vote. Selectman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Selectperson Howard?
Yes.
Vice Chair Childs?
Yep.
And myself. Public hearing is officially dissolved. Okay, I will entertain a motion to authorize the FY26 CDBG grant application.
Motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Yep.
That's
All
unanimous.
right.
Thank you, Wayne.
Go.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Mike, could I just say while Wayne is
Sure can.
getting ready to leave, I want to really personally thank Wayne and Christine and Karen. They do a fantastic job, and it's one of those things where most people in the town aren't familiar with them, but they're incredibly organized and professional, and they help a lot of people, and I just want to say thank you. So.
Yeah, thank you, guys. All right, next on the agenda, buy recycled policy update. Doug?
Thanks. So I included in your packet an email note that I got from the health agent asking the board to update the buy recycle policy that we've previously put in place multiple times over the years with a new sustainable purchasing policy that's put out by the State Department of Environmental Protection. And I'll just read one paragraph from the email note, which is that this policy incorporates recycled content purchasing standards while expanding the scope to include guidelines that minimize overall environmental and public health impacts associated with municipal purchasing. Environmentally preferable products are defined as products or services that meet minimum specifications related to recycled content, energy efficiency, water conservation, toxic use reduction, and waste prevention. So there's a standard policy that the state DEP is looking for towns like us to adopt. And the reason why we do this is because having this policy in place lets us get state grants, which we've been very successful with in the past. A lot of the improvements you've seen at the recycling center were purchased through grants that we got from the state because we have a policy like this in place. So I do recommend you formally vote to adopt it, and we'll put it in place.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a question. Aren't recycled products typically more expensive?
They can be.
Or-
You know,
I
so,
didn't
you know,
where that was.
they can be, but, you know, we buy things from, you know, state contract vendors,
Yeah.
from vendors like WB Mason that's on multiple cooperative purchasing agreements. So
Okay.
we always look at that,
Yeah.
but that can be the case sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, but so I would say that getting the grants would,
Yeah, I think, you know, there might be a
Okay,
marginal
so-
cost increase for some
Uh-huh.
paper or something, but then
Yeah.
if we get a $30,000 grant to
Sure.
buy a new, you know,
Okay.
compactor at the recycling center, it more than negates that
Great.
increase.
all right.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the buy recycled policy update.
Motion to approve?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? That's unanimous.
There you go.
All right, next on the agenda, old business, FY27 budget. Doug?
Thanks, Mike. I'm just going to switch seats while I get the projection going. And I want to mention that in addition to Courtney, who's always here with us, I also have the town accountant, Scott Curtis, in the back. And I really want to thank Scott in particular. This time of year, we spend a lot of time together, probably more than he wants, but he is, I can't thank him enough for all the work he's doing to help us all through this. So we talked a little bit before about, you know, concerns going into this budget. So my intention tonight is just to kind of lay the foundation of where we're at today based on the governor's proposed budget, which is really setting the stage for how this whole budget season is going to look. And I'll, you know, give you a little spoiler alert. This is going to be a difficult presentation, a difficult topic, because we are in a difficult financial situation. So to start, I know some of the font on some of these are a little bit small. I apologize, but I thought it'd be helpful just to kind of quickly go over the process that we go through in doing our budget, and it's pretty similar to most towns. So you can kind of follow the arrows, and you'll see the green check marks are tasks that we've already completed. So we begin with sending out budget request forms to each department where they fill them out and you know, request reasonable budgets for the upcoming year. We then meet with every department individually to go over their requests, make sure we understand what their needs are, what they're requesting and why. Then we submit our very preliminary budget by the end of December to you per the town charter, knowing that, that will never be the final budget because that's before the governor's budget even comes out, but we're required to submit that. So we check that box. And then we're really just waiting until the end of January for the governor's budget to come out because, as I've indicated many times before over the years, we're very reliant on state aid, so much more so than some other communities. You might see some other towns that get farther along in their budget process before the governor's budget comes out, and that's generally because they're not as reliant on state aid, so that's, it doesn't have as much of an impact. So once we get the governor's budget, we update our revenue projections, and the town accountant calculates the 70-30 split with the school department. And again, the 70-30 split is an agreement that was in place before I came on board, but it's something I think generally has worked very well, where we look at certain revenue increases from year to year. We net out certain shared expenses, and then the net revenue that's left, we split 70-30, meaning the school department gets 70% of that increased revenue, and the general government departments get 30%. So then we move forward with our finance committee meetings, and they will generally meet with each department head. Each department will go in, review their budget, literally line by line. We'll do just a few departments a night because they get into quite a bit of detail. That's kind of what we've completed to date. Then after that, under normal course of business, we'll finalize a balanced budget, bring that both to you and the finance committee, and then ultimately you'll put it on the town meeting warrant, and it gets voted at town meeting. So the governor's budget just came out about a week or so ago, and just to really dumb it down, I got a big thumbs down. We got some very difficult news. So you'll see the bottom line in the lower right-hand corner, our net, and I say net because there's two different parts, which I'll show you in the next couple of pages, of state aid. There's receipts or revenue coming in, and then there's charges or assessments that we have to pay going out. A lot of times people only look at the revenue piece, but you have to look at both sides. And you can see our net increase is less than 1%, 0.87%. So if you think about all the cost increases that we'll be talking about, whether it's health insurance and retirement and property insurance and utilities, and the list goes on, it's all greatly exceeding, 0.87% or even the 2.5% that we're allowed to raise in taxes. So this was very bad news for us, and we will talk a little bit more. Actually, I'll get there right now. So the next two slides just show snapshots from the government. They call it the cherry sheet. That's how the state refers to these, the publication of these numbers. These are all publicly available information that anybody could get on the state's website. The first tab you'll see in the upper left corner, highlighted in blue, these are the receipts. And I just circled the big numbers on there, which is our Chapter 70 aid. And when these cherry sheets come out, the first thing I do is look at that Chapter 70 number, because that's usually what's going to make or break us. And what I think is happening, I will defer to the school department on this because they're the experts, but I think much of this is enrollment driven, and we're always hovering right around that threshold. And I suspect that likely because of our current enrollment, or the enrollment as of the date that this was determined, was just shy of what was needed to get a more significant increase. So you can see there's a small increase there, small percentage-wise. And then when you go to the assessments and charges on the next page, you can see down below it's more than offset by the school choice sending tuition cost and the charter school sending tuition cost. You can see those two things alone are $2.7 million. But the increase on those, like I said, essentially negated that. So this was really difficult news for us. I probably should have put on the earlier slide, just highlighted that, we certainly hope that there will be increases as it goes through the House and the Senate and then to the governor. but just the way the timing works, we need to have our budget locked up before the House will even come out with their budget. It's like every other town, just the way the timing aligns. So we have to base our budget on these numbers and our other kind of reasonable assumptions. So the impact on the town's overall budget, and I want to try to be clear when I reference things relating to the general government versus the school department. What I'm talking about here is in total, both school and town, we're looking at a greater than a $2 million budget deficit. So it's going to be difficult. I listed the three major factors, in my opinion: lack of state aid that we just spoke about, health insurance. This is still a projection for us on the health insurance front. We're currently budgeting what we think is conservative and realistic. We're hoping it's going to be less, and we'll get better numbers on that. And if it's lower, we will absolutely capture that savings and reduce the deficit. But we know it's going to be double digits of a double-digit percentage increase. We just don't know if that's a 10% increase or a 19% increase yet. So we're kind of budgeting in the middle between those two. And then county retirement assessments. That's something we can speak a lot more now or at another day. We've talked about this in the past. Every community in the county is struggling with the accelerated schedule to get us fully funded. State law does allow the schedule to go out further, which while it would increase the total cost over the entire period of time, it would significantly improve every town's cash flow if it was a longer schedule. The Plymouth County Commissioners have not been very receptive to individual communities asking to extend that schedule. This might even warrant a whole nother discussion or meeting. Feel free to come back to this later if you'd like. But these are, in my opinion, really like the three big things that are contributing. And then that last bullet, I just thought was staggering. I mean, just think about this. We have Prop 2.5, which is our major way to fund the municipal services through property taxes. And our projected health insurance increase alone exceeds the whole Prop 2.5 increase. So that doesn't leave anything for, union raises and, all the other things that we need to, utilities and county retirement assessments, et cetera. So it's essentially, I'll be blunt, municipal finance in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is it's a broken financial model, unfortunately. So now I go back to the flow chart on our process. So you can see the big black arrows where we've gone back to our department heads and explained what the situation is. We've asked them to come back with what is essentially level funding, except for what is legally, contractually obligated. I'm working very closely with the school superintendent and assistant superintendent. I'm proud that we have such a close working relationship, so we're working with them as well. Through this process, we're going to have to refine what exactly the deficit is and how that's going to be shared. And then I'll go back to the normal process where we'll balance our budget and then go through the Finance Committee and you and get something on the warrant for town meeting. And it's an obvious point, but I'll just say it out loud. Unlike the federal government, we can't print money. We have to have an actual balanced budget. So we're held accountable. So some of my priorities, and I'm certainly open to any other feedback any of you might have on this, but initially we obviously have to fund all legal requirements, and I don't normally like to read every bullet on the slide, but I do want to quickly run through these. We have to fund everything here: state and county assessments, our regional school assessments, all of our different insurances. We have various IT contracts which have really increased over time, but it's critically important because, it's critically important because the majority of the increases are related to cybersecurity. And if the town were ever to get hit with any kind of cyber threat, ransomware, it could cripple the organization, literally shut down all of our operations, school, town, you name it. So those are really critical. Our regional dispatch services obviously have to be funded, all of our debt service, union contracts, individual employment agreements, which we only have a couple left, but those are all legal obligations. So I kind of start there, that has to be funded, and then we see what's left to manage. And there are, very few places to turn after that. And I just want to let the public know, I know we've talked about this in the past, but I think it's important to say it again. We are very lean. We are not overstaffed in any way. Most of our departments are tiny, 3 people in a department. So we do, which we could talk more about when we get to staffing at some point during reductions. We're actually missing entire departments in this community, and we can talk about that again later. But it's not just a matter of being lean. In some areas, we literally don't have anyone in place managing things that should be managed, and we suffer because of that. But we do our best and live within our means. But we are lean, and I want people to understand that. From my position, just kind of reading the room, so to speak, I am not prepared to recommend an operational override. That's obviously a policy decision that would never be up to me. That's your decision. But I'm very cognizant of the 3 debt exclusions that have recently passed for the Phelps School, South Shore Tech, and the fire station project. Only the Phelps School is even in people's current taxes. South Shore Tech and the fire station have not even hit yet, so people will feel those later. Obviously, any kind of operational override would only further add an increased tax burden. And unlike the debt exclusions, which disappear once they're fully funded, an operational override is permanent forever. So maybe that's something to put in the back of your head. If later, as we're presenting a balanced budget, if you have concerns about the level of cuts on either the school side or the town side, and you think an override discussion is warranted, that's certainly your prerogative. And you'll also, I'm sure you guys read in the papers and online, many of our communities are struggling with all of the same issues. Many of them have proposed overrides, some have passed, many have failed. So my approach to managing this, earlier this evening, I put out an immediate hiring freeze on all the general government departments. So that's unfortunate, but I think it's necessary given the situation we're in, until we can get a better handle on exactly how we're going to manage it. Ideally, I'd like to focus on non-personnel reductions first, look at all of our various operating budget line items. Obviously, always want to try to minimize negative impacts on services to the community to the greatest extent possible. I'll work with the town accountant to relook at our revenue assumptions. It's a tricky balance to be conservative, right? Because we can never be short in a budget. We can't be short and not able to pay payroll or health insurance or whatever. But we don't want to be so conservative that we over budget and have excess revenue and make reductions as a result. So it is a balancing act. So we will reevaluate that. And of course, it's always a best practice to avoid the use of free cash or any other one-time sources of revenue to close an operating budget gap. I put this slide in because I had a few questions about this, so I did want to clarify that some of the areas that are not affected by the operating budget deficit that I'm referring to are the water and sewer departments, because those are completely self-sufficient enterprise funds. And so I know you know that, but just for the community, what that means, an enterprise fund, is that they're a completely self-sufficient, almost like a mini business. So the revenue that they bring in from their fees, their charges that they charge to their users, is what covers their expenses. And to the extent that they have debt for large capital projects, they pay that debt service within their enterprise fund budgets. It's all self-supporting. Our snow and ice deficits that we fund and all of our capital requests are funded from free cash. Those are one-time expenses funded from one-time revenue outside of our operating budget. I know it gets a little confusing with snow and ice because there is an operating budget line item for snow and ice, but that's just the base. We exceed that very quickly every year and go into deficit, which is funded from free cash. So my next steps, I'll continue working very closely with the school department to make sure we're aligned in our approach on this. Continue working with our finance team and all of our department heads as we work through the reductions. I will present you with a balanced budget. Sorry, I'm fighting something today. I will present you with a balanced budget. And I think we should meet with our state senator and state rep to advocate for more aid, but as I indicated, I'm glad I'm at the end here. That won't be in time for town meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, so, obviously, I'm sure there's gonna be some questions. I'm glad that you brought up, state senator and state rep. Could we reach out to them, get them at our next meeting?
Yes. I'm
And
sorry.
then, we went back and forth, we talked about the Plymouth County, retirement and how the county office is kind of treating that. And while I'm an advocate for not going near that money and exercising restraint, I am against the fact that they're not even really engaging that conversation and not really letting the towns have a choice in our payment structure. Now, there's claims that these things were decided well before any of us got here, which, okay, but we're here now, and we've had no say in this. And I do think it's important to pay that down, and shame on the people that came before that didn't have a funding source for it and didn't have a plan to pay it. And I get what they're trying to do, but if they're gonna not budge on allowing us to change the payment structure, then they're gonna have to get off their butts and be advocates for us at the state house as well. They all voted themselves some nice salary increases over there, so they can use those salary increases and start advocating for us at the state house. Because it's a joke that we have money there because we're paying early that we could be paying today to get out of this budget crunch. And like I said, I'm on record as saying that I want to pay that off as soon as we can. But, stretching it out by another year wouldn't kill us, or another 2 years, whatever.
Yeah, and, I'm glad you wanted to dig into that a little deeper, Mike, because the numbers are really staggering. Within our levy limit, when we get to, I think it's FY32, we're going to be paying, I think it's $9 million. And the year-to-year increase has been staggering every year. And then the year after that, once we're fully funded, it's going to drop to a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
There's going to be it's just so dramatic. There's going to be like $9 million of excess levy capacity, which we've talked about. We could pay off debt, could do a lot of things to help taxpayers, stabilize our budgets. But it is unfortunate that at the same time we're getting hit with a lot of unfunded mandates, especially in the school department. The school department faces a lot of difficult challenges that are required without the amount of funding that should be following that from the state, at the same time that we have this requirement to accelerate this repayment schedule in a very dramatic fashion, and it's all kind of coming together in a perfect storm. And again, it's not just us. Every town in the county is facing this. You could take this presentation, except for the over-reliance on state aid, but those same other factors everybody's facing.
I had a question. Is there any way we can regionalize with the towns around us with anything to bring stuff down?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about that all the time, and, the most recent example is our Public Health Excellence Grant through the Health Department,
Right.
where we're actually the lead community, so we get even more benefit than the others.
Yeah.
And that's a great regional project, and we're getting a lot done with that. So that's something that, sure, we always look at.
Like even
But it won't be
transportation.
a panacea to
Yeah.
the deficit we're looking
Yeah,
at right now.
I was thinking transportation, because that's a huge cost for the schools.
For school,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I would defer to them on that. I don't want to speak for the school
It
department.
might take 3 hours for a kid to get home. if it
Yeah, that
really
would not be
regionalized too.
ideal.
So, all right.
As the new guy here, I got a bunch of questions. My first time going through this rodeo, so I hope you all bear with me. The county retirement annual assessment, just rough numbers. What are we looking at, like, for this year and then for next year?
Scott, you'll probably know better off the top of your head than me.
Roughly a 7 to 8% increase annually.
No, but what's the number?
6.5 million. We share some of it with water and sewer. I think overall it's like a $7 million number.
Okay.
But like I said, portion of that
I
goes
think
to
it's
water
helpful
and
to
sewer.
know, and knowing we'll get to around 9 million by 2032.
Correct.
Give folks an idea of how that's ramping up over time.
Yeah.
I agree with Mike, it would be awesome to hit that date, but knowing that it's gonna drop to a couple $100,000 after that, I think there's some wiggle. I know we're behind because of the auditing agencies with the free cash certification. Do we have any sense of what we think that number looks like?
We do. I mean, Scott has submitted it. I'll say that the requests for use of free cash exceed the number
Always does.
that we've
Right.
exceeded,
Yeah.
but it'll be a healthy number this year. Yeah.
And the way I bring that up, and I know we don't want to use free cash for operational expenses, but a lot of what we use free cash for is capital projects. We have a lot of debt service that funded capital projects. Could we, and I don't know how the rest of the folks, and I'm just kind of throwing it out there, is that something we could look at, not looking at it to fund operational, we're not looking to use that money to fund salaries or sundries, but using free cash, which we use as a revenue source to fund capital projects, to pay down capital debt as a 1-year stopgap measure to help ease the burden.
So let me just make sure I understand your question, because, generally debt should be excluded, meaning there's a Prop 2.5 debt exclusion, so there's been a dedicated tax increase that's legally obligated to pay for that debt. So that debt needs to be funded from that tax increase. That's what
Okay.
voters paid for. There is a little bit of debt inside our levy, non-excluded debt. I think one example would be the first round of sprinkler improvements at McKinley, which was done right before I got here. I think that's inside debt. So is what you're suggesting to use free cash to pay the debt service for a year
For non-excluded.
on that,
Yeah.
which would free up some money in the operating budget? I think
Right.
that's what you're asking.
Right, and then kind of push off some non-critical
Right.
capital requests.
I think that's, I don't know, Scott, do you have an initial thought before we dig
That's a
in?
similar situation, because we really wouldn't we could say we could use it for debt, but it would just be a funding source for the general fund, like, it would just be another, I say, 200 grand. Like, we could say we're gonna use it to offset that, but that was still, the state would still see that as we're using free cash to fund our operating budget, because that inside debt is part of our operating
And
budget.
what does that put us at risk for a lower credit rating?
Yes.
I know, listening last year, there was talk about, the being less conservative on the revenue expectations. You guys held the line on that pretty good. And I am of the mind that we do not deviate from that. I think we need to ensure we stay conservative. It's been a good model that's carried us for a long time. And just want to make my opinion there known that I don't think deviating from our current revenue model and being less conservative there is a good strategy long-term. Sure, there's probably some wiggle, and I assume the idea there is that it doesn't impact our credit rating if we do forecast a little differently.
No, it wouldn't, but they generally like to see us be conservative.
Right.
To make sure we can cover our expenses.
Okay. And then, finally, I know we talked about bringing the state rep, state senator here to talk through it, but is there anything else that we as a board or individuals can do to help?
Let me think about that some more.
And
Think about
then-
that some more. Not
So-
off the top of my head, but I'll give that some more, we'll give that some more thought and get back to you. I appreciate you asking.
And then I'm sure there are folks at home watching, knowing the situation we're in. Something else to think about is, how can the community members help? I think one simple way that folks could help is write letters, send emails, and call your state rep and state senator. Those go a long way. I know it seems like it may not, but with enough volume, and call the governor's office. Your voice is magnified with every call and email and letter that's sent. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else? John? Any
You
thoughts?
guys kind of covered it. I mean, as for the budgeting, getting a little more aggressive on revenues or whatever, that isn't going to close a $2 million
No.
deficit. If we're 50,000 short,
Yeah.
then you adjust something, but you're not going to make up $2 million tweaking or being more optimistic about what you're going to take in local receipts, so.
John, what do you hear from the county, being on the advisory board? What do you hear from them as far as this? And, I mean, you've obviously seen them. I know Doug had a conversation with Tom O'Brien, the treasurer, the other day, and that wasn't a great conversation from what I gather. As far as them, any wiggle room at all with them?
I mean, there's only been one meeting that I've attended, but just in general, I think I mentioned this last time, they are very proud
Yeah.
about trying to get this done.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I don't think if literally every member community told them to
That they do
release the
anything.
reins a little
Yeah.
bit, I don't expect that they're going to, so.
Yeah.
Is there a way that they can be greater advocates, you think, in assisting with putting
I
pressure?
mean, as I think you
suppose,
pointed out, that if this is their baby, so
Yeah.
to speak, that,
Yeah, it'd be
we
better.
got, what, to 2050 we could go? Is that how far?
40.
40, I wasn't
Yeah.
sure which one.
Yeah.
So they could kick this out.
Mm.
I mean, I don't even know if that's not in and of itself gonna give us $2 million,
No.
but it
No.
will help.
Well, Tom O'Brien gave a presentation at the Hanover Select Board meeting, so you can watch that online to
Yeah,
kind of forecast.
I did see it, but I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if sometimes there's different things being said in different meetings, you know?
Oh, gotcha.
So,
And I just want to add that in the conversation we had with the county treasurer, he made it clear that, they were not keen on extending it, but even if they were, it wouldn't be in FY '27, it would theoretically be later than that. So it's not going to help us for this particular FY '27 budget.
Okay, well, I echo what Steve was saying. If there's anything we can do, obviously, I do have, great confidence in you and Scott and the rest of your team to be able to get there, because we faced similar budgets before. When we saw the 2 million come out at the very beginning, we were like, oh, that's not that bad, So, and obviously now that we didn't get backup from state aid, it is bad, but I'm confident you guys will make the right decisions and whatever we can do to help, obviously.
I appreciate that,
That's what I'm saying.
and maybe, Mike, just my closing thought, should have put that up earlier, but I guess my closing thought is just, I just want to let all the staff in Town Hall and all of our departments know how proud I am of all the work that they do. I think we do an excellent job with the resources available, and the same goes with our school department. We have an outstanding school department. Again, I can't stress enough the amount of unfunded mandates that they have to deal with from the state, and they do a fantastic job as well, so we'll get through this together.
Okay. Thank you, Doug.
Yep.
Next on the agenda, other old business not reasonably anticipated. Seeing none. I'll give you a couple seconds to go over there for your town administrator's report and correspondence.
And I want to thank Courtney for getting me some cough drops. I
Yeah.
apologize for that coughing fit earlier. All right, just a couple of things. Tonight, the main things I've been working on, kind of the same story, the budget, the fire station project. I think what people will see soon on the fire station project is the underground storage tank at the Lincoln School will be removed soon. And we're going to go out to bid for the demo of the building. And during all this time, we're working with the architect and the project manager on the final design, and that process will take a while. With the Pleasant Street landfill project, our land use attorney, Galvin, who's here with us today in the audience, he's been working on finalizing the license agreement and then a separate development agreement document. We're still finalizing our draft of that with our consultant engineers. We want to get those contracts locked in quickly so we can get off and running. In the Bicentennial Track project, we're working with our engineer, finalizing the Conservation Commission permits and the final design. So, and my updates, I'll kind of keep going over those same projects, but you'll see the different milestones will improve over time. And then lastly, we're continuing to work with our neighboring communities. This kind of gets to Lori's comment about regionalization on a potential MWRA drinking water expansion. And I want to stress the word potential. We're still in the feasibility study phase, but we are making progress. As a group, we've narrowed the scope, the geographic scope, and we actually have a meeting with MWRA officials coming up next week. If we get enough momentum, then we'll kind of start looping in elected select board members, and we'll kind of take it to the next level. But we just need to see if there's really something there, before we get to that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Select board comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the select board, and are the opinions and comments of only the individual member. Select board member O'Donnell.
Thank you. Nothing officially prepared tonight. A couple of thoughts. I want to thank folks for their outward and indirect support for my prepared statements over the last few months. I want to address some concerns because I know folks are asking, why would a local elected official speak on national politics? I think it's important. that we think how those things impact us and kind of forecast of what could be happening in our community, especially as, you know, you see, we're talking about the state budget, you know. That's bigger than us, but it has a direct impact. Same thing federally. The federal budget impacts the state budget, impacts municipal budgets. Ways I'm working to help in the community, attended the Open Space and the Open Space Committee meeting last night, talked about some movement with some of their initiatives. They're very appreciative. Working with our town planner, Allison Quinn, on the Open Space and Recreation Plan. Talked about the housing production plan. We've met once and waiting for the consultants to come back to us with some further plans, but looking into using the committee to actually drive that forward while we wait to give the consultants a bit more direction versus them dictating how we move through this process. And she was very receptive to that. Had also a nice conversation with our town assessor, Meg Peterson, today, looking at opportunities, you know, to potentially offset some tax burden for some of our lower property value. It's in its infancy, just throwing some ideas around, but want to reassure people that even though I have some outward visions, also focusing on the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Select Board Member Ode.
Yeah, I just thought I'd give a quick update with regard to the upcoming local election. Papers, you can still pull papers for any of the races that are going on. As of right now, we have 4 positions that will be unopposed, or, you know, if it's like for the school committee, there's 2 spots open, but there's only 1 person. There's no one has pulled papers for the planning board. The water commissioner, which has been open for a while, is you hear people talk about the water. Well, here you go, step up, get on the board, and then you can do something about it. And same thing with the sewer. As of right now, no one has pulled papers for the sewer. So, you know, people do like to talk. How about you step up and do something about it?
Thank you, John. Vice Chair Childs.
Yeah, I echo what John said. Step up if you can. The chair of our Board of Health, Robert Stevens, pulled papers today to run again. And there's 3 other people on that ticket, and that should prove to be quite interesting. But he got on the board through a write-in ballot. And when you have blank or nobody running for certain positions and people are write-in that same day, this is the type of issue with a write-in, because you don't have time to see them at candidates night or read about their platform or their experience. So I think we ended up with an irresponsible head of the Board of Health, clearly, and the vice chair as well, his mother. And, you know, permits go unsigned. We still have not had a kratom discussion, and that's been months now. It's a very serious issue. So please, I encourage everybody to step up for the positions that John mentioned.
Thank you, Ward. And just for myself, I just want to thank the Highway Department with the last week's storm. I think Rockland was the jackpot with 25 inches, and then we got another 4.5 inches later that night. And I did a little bit of driving around, and Rockland compared to every other town in the area.
I know.
We were down to pavement within hours of the storm, where other towns were still 30 inches on the ground. So it was pretty impressive what Dave and the people down at the Highway Department do. So thank you to them. And then also just announced the Barney Brunch is going to be this year, March 8th at Players. It's $40 a ticket. This year's benefactor is the Rockland High School Athletic Boosters. So $40 a ticket. Tickets tend to go very fast for this event. So reach out to myself, Dan Biggins, Mike Mullen, or Pam Murphy, and we'll go from there. All right? And I will entertain a motion to adjourn to enter executive session not to reconvene for purpose of Mass General Law Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and to conduct collective bargaining, specifically to consider grievance requests pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Rockland and professional firefighters. Per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, parcel ID 78-90. And per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, David B. McCarthy versus Town of Rockland. Entertained a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor, roll call vote. Select Board Member O'Donnell,
Yes.
Select Board Member Elwood,
Yes.
Vice Chair Childs.
Yep.
And myself. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.